It's not a good idea. We're all going to
Good evening, and thank you for coming out tonight on this frosty evening. My name is Grodzik. I'm the director of the show. The program that this show comes from is called Making Theater, Making Dance. And as part of the theater section, the group of students came together and it formed a theater company. Everything you see up here tonight, from costumes, essentially set design, props, the video, everything came from the students. We also had publicity, we had posters, and we became a self-sufficient company. So I just wanted to mention that at the beginning. A little bit about the Laramie Project. We discussed it as a company about the structure of it. And the structure of it is very, very different than any play you've probably ever seen, and actually very different from any play I've ever directed. It's moments. I mean, there are moments in this play that are 10 or 15 seconds. And then we move on to another moment and another moment. And what the play is a montage of Laramie, Wyoming after the beating of Matthew Shepard. So it's very different to watch. Things fly constantly, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And so just be aware that the structure of the play is quite different. A little bit of technical information here, please. Please turn off your cell phones. Make sure they're off. Secondly, no flash photography during the show because it could really throw the actors and actresses off. Thank you for coming. And this play is about not only what we did as a class, but many people have heard of Matthew Shepard, but do not remember his history anymore. And it's 20 years later. So tonight we're going to celebrate and honor the life of Matthew Shepard. You know, history only exists as long as we tell the stories. And people remember the stories who were part of that history. So tonight we're remembering Matthew Shepard. Thank you for coming on this frosty evening. And it's 3 acts, 10-minute break between each act. Take care. Thank you.
On November 14th, 1998, the members of the Tectonic Theater Company traveled to Laramie, Wyoming to conduct interviews with the people of the town.
During the next year, we returned to Laramie several times and conduct over 200 interviews.
The play you are about to see is edited from those interviews, as well as from journal entries by members of the company and other found texts.
Company member Greg Pierotti.
My first interview was with Detective Sergeant Hing of the Laramie Police Department. At the beginning of the interview, he was saying something like this. I was born here, raised here. Family's been here 3 generations. Grandparents moved here in the early 1900s. Guess my daughter makes it 4 generations. Good place to live, good people, lots of space. Now the towns in Wyoming are laid out in space because of how the railroad came through. It was how far they had to go before having to refuel and rewater, and well, Laramie was a major stopping point. That's why the towns are spaced so far apart. We're one of the largest states in the country, but the least populated.
There's so much space between people and towns here. So much time for reflection.
Rebecca Helliker, head of the theater department at the University of Wyoming.
You have an opportunity to be happy in your life here. I found that people were nicer here than in the Midwest where I used to teach because they were happy. They were glad the sun was shining, and it shines a lot here.
What you have is your old-time traditional ranchers. Laramie's been the hub of where they come for supplies and stuff like that.
Stewardship is one thing all our ancestors taught us.
Eileen Engen, rancher.
If you don't take care of the land, then you ruin it. You
love it here.
Doc O'Connor, he's a limousine driver.
You couldn't put me in that mess out there back east. Best thing about it is the climate, the cold, the wind. They say the Wyoming wind will drive a man insane, but you know what? It don't bother me. Well, sometimes it bothers me, but most of the time don't.
And then you have the university population.
I moved here after living in a couple of big cities.
Philip Dubois, he's the president of the University of Wyoming.
Now, I loved it there, but you'd have to be out of your mind to let your kids out after dark. And here, during the summertime, I let my kids stay out till 11 o'clock. I don't even think about it.
And then you have the people who live in Laramie, basically.
I moved here from rural Texas.
Zachy Salmon, Laramie resident.
Now in Laramie, if you don't know a person, you will definitely know someone they know, so it can only be 1 degree removed at most, and for me, I love it. I mean, I love to go to the grocery store because I get to visit with 4 or 5 or 6 people every time I go. And I don't really mind people knowing my business because what's my business, right? I mean, my business is basically good.
I like the trains too. Toot toot! They don't bother me. Well, sometimes they bother me, but most of the time they don't. Even though one goes by every 13 minutes out where I live.
Doc actually lives up in Bosler, but everyone in Laramie knows him. He's also not really a doctor.
They used to carry cattle, them trains. Now they carry his diapers and cars.
I grew up in Cody, Wyoming.
This is April Silva, university student.
Laramie is better than where I grew up, I'll give it that.
Now, when the incident with that boy happened, we had a lot of press people come up here. One day, one of them followed me out to the crime scene. It was just this beautiful day, an absolutely gorgeous day. The sky was this blue, you'll never be able to paint it. It's just sky blue. And the mountains had a little bit of snow on them. It was just, the air was clear and crisp. And this reporter, that person, looked at me and said,
Well, who found the boy? Who is out here anyway?
I said, this is a real popular area for people to run, and mountain biking's big here, and horseback riding. It's just close to town, and real convenient. And then they looked at me and said,
Who in the hell would want to run out here?
I'm like, dude! You're missing the point. Look in, taking the beauty around you. See the mountains, smell the air, and they're just like nothing but the story. I didn't feel judged, but I felt they were being stupid.
It's hard to talk about Laramie now, to tell you what Laramie means for us.
Jedediah Schultz, university student.
If you would have asked me before, I would have told you Laramie is a beautiful town, secluded enough to where you can have your own identity, but a town with a strong sense of community. You know, everyone knows everyone. It's a town with a personality that most larger cities are stripped of, but now, after Matthew, I'd say Laramie is a town defined by an accident, a crime. We've become Waco, we've become Jasper. We're a noun, a definition, a sign. We may be able to get rid of that. It sure will take a while.
Journal entries, members of the company. This is Andy Paris.
Moisés called me and said that he had an idea for our next play, but there was a somberness to his voice, so I asked him what it was all about, and he said he wanted to do a piece about what's going on in Wyoming.
This is Stephen Belberg.
Lee told me the company would be going down to Laramie to conduct interviews and that they wanted me to come, but I'm hesitant. I have no real interest in prying into a town's unraveling.
Here comes Amanda Grodzik.
I've never done anything remotely like this before in my life. How do you get people to talk to you? What do you ask?
Moisés Kaufman.
The company has agreed that we should go to Laramie for a week and conduct interviews. I'm a little worried about taking so many people on a trip of this nature, so must make safety rules. No one works alone, and everyone must carry a cell phone. I've already made some preliminary contacts with Rebecca Hilliker, the head of the theater department at the University of Wyoming. She's hosting a party for us on our first night, and she's going to introduce us to possible interviewees.
Now, I must tell you that when I first heard you were thinking of coming here, you know, when you first called me, I wanted to say, God, you know, God, you just kicked me in the stomach, like, why are you doing this to me? But, you know, then I thought, you're not doing this to me. And, well, more importantly, I thought about it and decided, well, we've had so much negative closure on this whole thing, and the students really need to talk. And when this first happened, they started talking. talking about it, and then the media descended, and all dialogue stopped. You know, Thank you. I really love my students because they're free thinkers. And you may not like what they have to say, and you may not really like their opinions, because, well, they can be very redneck, but they're honest and they're truthful. So there's an excitement here that I never thought I'd have when living in the Midwest or North Dakota, because there was so much Puritanism that dictated how people looked at the world that they didn't have an opinion. I couldn't get them to express an opinion, and quite honestly, I'd rather have opinions I don't like and have that dynamic in education. You know, there's a student I think you should talk to. His name is Jedediah Schultz.
I've lived in Wyoming my whole life, and my family's been in Wyoming for, well, generations. Now, when it came time for me to go to college, my parents couldn't afford to send me, and I wanted to study theater. So I knew that if I was going to go to college, I'd have to get on a scholarship. So they have this competition each year, this Wyoming State High School competition. And I knew that if I didn't take first place in the duets, that I wasn't going to get on a scholarship. So I went to the theater department at the university looking for good scenes, and I asked one of the professors, and I said, I need just a killer scene. And he looked at me and said, here you go, this is it. And it was from Angels in America. And I read it, and I knew if I did a good enough job that I could win best scene. So when the time came, I told my parents so they could come see me in the competition. Now, one thing you have to understand about my parents is that they go to everything. Every hockey game, every ball game, everything I've ever done. And they brought me into their room and told me that if I did this scene for the competition, they wouldn't come and see me. They felt that strongly about it. They felt that homosexuality was wrong, and they felt that strongly about it. They wouldn't come see their son probably do the most important thing he'd done up to that point in his life, and I didn't know what to do. I had never, ever gone against my parents' wishes, and I was really nervous about it, but I decided to do it anyway. And the only thing I remember from the competition is that when me and my scene partner were done, we went up to each other and shook hands, and there was a standing ovation. Amazing. And we took first place and we won, and that's how come I can afford to be here at the university, because of that scene. It was one of the best moments of my life, and my parents weren't there. And to this day, it is the one thing they did not see me do. And thinking back on it, I asked myself, why did I do it? Why did I oppose my parents? Because I'm not gay. So why did I do it? And the only honest answer I can conjure up is, I wanted to win. Man, it was just the best scene. Do you know Mr. Kushner? Or maybe you could let him know. Come to Mr. Greg Trio.
We arrived today at the Denver airport and drove into Laramie. As soon as we crossed the border, I swear, I saw a herd of buffalo. Also, I thought it was a little strange that the Wyoming sign said, Wyoming, like no place on earth, instead of Wyoming, like no place else on earth. Company member Lee Nikowski.
Today I stopped at a local inn for a bite to eat, and my waitress said to me,
Hi, my name is Debbie. I was born in 1954, and yes, Debbie Reynolds was big then. So yes, there are a lot of us around, but I promise I won't slap you if you leave your elbows on the table.
Today, Lee tried to explain to me what a chicken fried steak is.
it's not hard.
I don't...
Now, are you two from Wyoming, or are you just passing through?
Well, we're just passing through.
We arrived in Laramie tonight. Just past the welcome to Laramie sign. Population 26,687. The first thing to greet us was Walmart. In the dark, we could be on any main drag in America. Fast food chains, gas stations. But as we drove to the downtown area by the railroad tracks, the buildings still looked like the shape of a turn-of-the-century western town. Oh, and as we drove past the University Inn, on the sign where amenities such as heated pool and cable TV are usually touted, it said, hate is not a Laramie value. Greg Pierotti.
I met today with two longtime Laramie residents, Allison Mears and Marge Murray, two social service workers who taught me a thing or two.
Well, what Laramie used to be like when Marge was growing up, it was pretty rural.
Yeah, it was. I enjoyed it, you know. My kids all had horses.
Well, there was more land. You could keep your little horses, your chickens, your dogs, your cows. You know, just have your own piece of acreage.
Yeah, I could run around the house in my all-togethers, do the housework while the kids were in school and nobody could see me. And even if they got that close,
Well, that's their problem.
yeah.
Hold on a second. In your all-togethers?
Well, yeah, honey, why wear clothes? Now how's he gonna use that display?
So, this was a big ranching town.
Oh, not just ranching. It used to be a big railroad town until they moved everything to Cheyenne and Green River and Omaha. So now it's just kind of a drive-through spot for the railroad because even in, what was it, the 50s? Oh, they just had one big roundhouse. Oh, and they had such a shop that they could build a complete engine.
They did. My mom worked there. She washed engines. Her name was Minnie. We used to, you know, sing that song.
What song? I've never heard it. What's it say?
Run for the roundhouse, Minnie! They can't corner you back! Sorry, I want to use that song.
It's a great song.
In Laramie, there aren't very many good jobs. I mean, they have the big high whoop-de-doo jobs at the university, but for the bulk of the majority of people, they only have minimum wage jobs.
Yeah, I either worked in the service industry or bartended most of my life now. I know everybody in town.
And she does.
And I do. Now, I'll tell you, here in Laramie, there is a difference. What it is class distinction. It's about the well-educated and the ones that are not. And the educated don't understand why the ones that are not don't get educated. That's why I told you before, my kids had to fight because their mother was a bartender. Never mind, I was the best damn bartender in town.
And she was.
That's not bragging, that fact.
Oh, if Laramie didn't have the university, we would be SOL.
What's SOL?
Do I gotta say it?
Please?
The shit out of luck!
Wrote that one down.
Oh no, he got that on his tape. Oh, you're getting an education today.
Yes, I am. So let me ask you, what was your response when this happened to Matthew Shepard?
Oh, well, you know, I'm close enough to the case to know many of the people. I have a daughter on the sheriff's department. As far as the gay issue goes, I don't give a damn one way or the other as long as they don't bother me. And even if they did, I'd just say, no thank you. And I think that's the attitude of most of the Laramie population. You know, they might poke one if they were in a bar situation. You know, they might even smack one in the mouth, but then they just walk away. Most of them they just say, I don't swing that way, and whistle on their business. Laramie is live and let live.
I suppose Marge knows a lot more, except she's even willing to say, and we need to respect her for that.
Well, where are you going with this story?
We still haven't decided. We're going to bring it back by Laramie when we're finished.
Well, when there are parts I won't tell you.
Today, for the first time, I got to meet somebody who actually knew Matthew Shepard. Trish Steger, owner of a shop in town, referred to him as Matt.
Matt used to come into my shop. That's how I know him.
It was the first time I'd heard him referred to as anything other than just Matthew. Did he go by Matt to everybody, or?
Well, on the 2nd of October, I get a phone call about 10 after 7.
Doc O'Connor.
It was Matthew Shepard, and he said to me, can you pick me up at the corner in 3rd and Grand? So anyhow, I pull up to the corner to see who Matthew Shepard. You know, it's a little guy, 5'2", soaking wet, I bet you, 97 pounds tops. They say he weighed 110, but I wouldn't believe it. They also said he was 5'5" in the newspapers, but this man, he was really only about 5'2", maybe 5'1". So he walks up to the window, and I'm going to try and go in steps so you can better understand the principle of this man. So he walks up to the window, and I'm like, are you Matthew Shepard? He's like, yeah, I'm Matthew Shepard, but I don't want you to call me Matthew, or Mr. Shepard. I don't want you to call me anything. My name is Matt, and I want you to know I'm gay, and we're going to a gay bar. You got a problem with that? How you paying? Fact of the matter is, Laramie doesn't have any gay bars. And for that matter, neither does Wyoming. So he was hiring me to take him to Fort Collins, Colorado, about an hour away. Matt was a blunt little shit. You know what I'm saying? He always was. But I liked him, because he was straightforward. Maybe gay, but straightforward.
I don't know, you know? How can any one person ever say about another? You really should talk to my sister Obey. She was a very close friend of Matthew's.
Well, we never actually called him Matthew. We called him Choo Choo. You know, because it used to be Matthew and then just Choo Choo. When I think of Matthew, I think of his incredible beaming smile. I mean, he'd just walk into a room like, you know, and he'd smile at everyone. He made you feel so good. Oh, and at the coffee shop? Okay, so he'd always want to sit at the end seat, all right, so that he could talk to me while I was working. So if anyone was ever sitting there, he would sit down and he would stare at them. You know, really give it to them until they left and he'd play that spot. Matthew definitely had a political side to him. That's all his main interest was watching CNN and MSNBC. Those were really the only two stations I ever saw his TV tuned into. Yeah, he was really smart in like political stuff, but not so smart in like common sense stuff. So he moved to Laramie to go to school.
Matthew was very shy when he first came in. Joe Peacock, Matthew Shepard's academic advisor.
To the point of being somewhat mousy, I'd almost say. He was having some difficulties adjusting, but this was home to him. He made that quite clear. So his mousiness, his shyness, gave way to a person who was excited about the track that he was going to embark on. He was just figuring out wanting to work on human rights, how he would go about doing that. And when that happens, this person begins to bloom a little bit. He was starting to say things like, wow, there are opportunities here. There are things I can do in this world. I can be important.
I actually spoke with Matthew 48 hours before his attack. He was telling me about how he just joined the gay and lesbian group on campus, and he was really excited for it, you know, getting ready for Pride Week and whatnot. Yeah, he was really stoked to be in school. He was really happy to be there.
And in retrospect, and I can only say this in retrospect, of course, but I think that's where he was headed, towards human rights, which only adds to the irony and the tragedy of all of this.
There's more gay people in Wyoming than meets the eye. I know for a fact. They're not particularly, what do you call them? The queens? Gay people? Queens? You know, runabout, faggot-type people? No, they're the ones that throw bales of hay, jump on horses, braid them, and kick ass. You know what I'm saying? As I always say, don't fuck with a Wyoming queer, because they will trick you in your fucking ass. But that's not the point of what I'm trying to say. Because I know a lot of gay people in Wyoming. I know a lot of people, period. And I don't think Wyoming people give a damn one way or another. If you're gay or if you're straight, that's just what I say. It doesn't matter. If there's 8 men and 1 woman in a Wyoming bar, which is often the case, now you stop and think, who's getting what? Now, geez, it don't take a big intelligent mind to figure that one out.
How can I describe what it's really like to be gay here in Laramie?
Katherine Connolly.
I was the first out lesbian or gay faculty member on campus, and that was in 1992, okay? I was asked during my interview when my husband did, and so I just came out then. Do you all want a funny story?
Yes.
Yeah, thank God. When you first get here as a new faculty member, there's all these things you have to do, and so I was sitting in my office, and I noticed that this woman called. I was expecting it was, you know, a health insurance phone call, something like that, and so I called her back. And I could hear her. She's working on her keyboard, clicking away, click, 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 click. I said, you know, this is Kathy Connolly returning your call. And she said, oh, it's you. And I thought, this is bizarre. And she said, I hear you're gay. I hear you are. And I was like, uh-huh. And she said, I I hear you came as a couple. I'm one too, not a couple, just a person. So she was a kind of lesbian who knew I was coming and wanted to come over and meet me immediately. And she later told me that there were other lesbians that she knew who wouldn't be seen with me. That I would irreparably taint them, that just to be seen with me could be a problem. I have won almost every teaching award that is possible on campus. And yet, even last year, one of my students' course evaluations said, she likes girls, and it shows. She's disgusting.
When I came here, I knew it was going to be hard as a gay man.
Jonas Slonaker.
But I kept telling myself, you know, people should live where they want to live. And there'd be times I'd go down to Denver, I'd go to gay bars, and people would ask me, where are you from? And I'd be like, Laramie, Wyoming. And I met so many men down there from Wyoming. So many gay men who grew up here, and they're like, this is not a place where I could live. How could you live there? I had to get out. Whoa! But, you know, every once in a while there'd be a guy like, oh gosh, I miss Laramie. I mean, I really love it there. That's where I want to live. And they get this starry-eyed look, and I'm like, buddy, if that's where you want to live, do it. I mean, imagine if more gay people stayed in small towns. But then that's easier said than done, of course.
Today we are moving from our motel to the best Western.
Moisés Kaufman.
My hope is that it is indeed a better Western. Amanda Grodzik.
Today we were divided up to go to different churches in the community. Moisés and I were given the Baptist church. We were welcomed into the services by the Reverend himself standing at the entrance of the chapel. This is what I remember from the service that morning.
My dear brothers and sisters, I'm here today to bring you the word of the Lord. Now, I have a simple truth that I tell my colleagues, and I'm going to tell it to you all today. The word is either sufficient or it is not. Scientists tell me that the world, that human history is 5 or 6 billion years old? After all, what's a billion years give or take? The Bible tells me that the world, that human history is 6,000 years old. The word is either sufficient or it is not. Thank you. God bless. Thank you.
The sociology of religion in the West.
Stephanie Meade Johnson, Unitarian minister.
Dominant religious traditions in this town, Baptist, Mormon, oh, they're everywhere. It's not just Salt Lake, you know, they're all over. They're like jam on toast around here.
The Mormon church has a little different thing going that bothers some people.
Doug Law is a stake ecclesiastical leader for the Mormon church.
And that is, we absolutely believe that God still speaks to man today. We don't think it happened a couple thousand years ago and some people wrote about it in the Bible. We believe that God still speaks to man today. We believe that the prophet of the church has the authority to receive inspiration and revelation from God.
So the spectrum would be on the left side of that panel, so far left that I am probably sitting by myself. It's me. And the Unitarian Church. Now, Unitarians are by and large humanists, many of whom are atheists. I mean, we're not even sure we're a religion. And to my right on that spectrum, to his credit, Father Roger, Catholic priest who is well established here. And God bless him, he did not equivocate at all when this happened. He hosted the vigil for Matthew that night.
I was really jolted because, when we did the vigil, we wanted to get other ministers involved, and they were not going to get involved. And it was like we are going to stand back and see which way the wind is blowing. And that angered me immensely. We are supposed to stand out as leaders. I thought, wow, what is going on here?
God has set boundaries, and one of our responsibilities is to know what is it that God wants. So you look to your leaders, and you read your scripture, and then you sort of get an idea of what the bounds are. And then once you know what the bounds are, then you know what's out of bounds.
I'll warn you, you will be mocked. You will be ridiculed for the singularity of your faith.
That's right.
But you let the Bible be your guide. It's in there. It's all in here. Thank you. Thank you.
The Christian pastors, many of the more conservative ones, were silent on this. Conservative Christians use the Bible to show the rest of the world it says here in the Bible, and most Americans believe, and they do, that the Bible is the Word of God. And how are you going to fight that?
I am a biblicist, which means the Bible does not need me to be true. The Bible is true whether I believe it or not.
Yes, sir. Yes.
The Word is either sufficient or it is not. Thank you, God bless. God bless you, thank you.
I arrived in Laramie on September 15th. I looked around, tumbleweed, cement factory, and I thought, what in the hell am I doing in Wyoming? 3 weeks later, I found out what in the hell I am doing in Wyoming.
I had breakfast this morning with a university student named Zavita Ula. She's an Orthodox Jewish feminist who likes to do things her own way.
I moved to Laramie when I was 4, actually. Yeah, my parents are from Jerusalem. Oh, thank you. Because I'm Jewish, I decided to start wearing a scarf 2 years ago. That has really changed my life here in Laramie. Oh, yeah. Like, people will say things to me now, like, why do you have to wear that thing on your head? And it's like, okay, when I go to the grocery store, I am not looking to give people Judaism 101. So I'll be like, well, it's part of my religion. And they'll be like, this is the worst part, because they'll be like, well, I know it's part of your religion, but why? And it's like, how am I supposed to go into the whole doctrine of physical modesty and my own spiritual relationship with the Lord, standing there with my pop and my chips, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, it is so unreal to me that, like, yeah, a group from New York is writing a play about Laramie, and then I started imagining it, like, you are going to be in a play about my town. You're going to be on stage in New York, and you're going to be pretending like you're us? That is so weird to me.
Hello. Hi, my name is Amanda Grodzik, and I'm here in Laramie working with the theater company, and I went to your husband, the Reverend, your husband's church on Sunday, and I was extremely interested in talking about him on some of his views about current events.
Well, I don't think he'll want to talk to you. He has very biblical views on homosexuality. He doesn't condone that kind of violence. He doesn't condone that kind of lifestyle. And he was just bombarded with press after this happened, and the media has been just terrible about this whole thing.
No, I completely understand. It must have just been terrible.
Yes, I think we're hoping this whole thing just goes away.
Well, do you think maybe I could call back later and just speak to him briefly?
Well, all right, you can call back tonight around 9.
Thank you so much.
Today, Barbara and I went to the Fireside Bar, which was the last place that Matthew had been seen in public.
Fireside definitely looks like your typical college bar with a pool table, a couple of stages for karaoke night. But the few regulars there in the late afternoon are hardly the college crowd.
The first person we talked to was Matt Nicholson, the owner.
My great-great-grandfather moved here in 1862. He owned Laramie's first opera house. It was called Old Blue Front. And in 1870, Louisa Granma Swain cast the first woman's ballot in any free election in the world. And that's why Wyoming is called the Equality State.
Yeah!
Oh, yeah! So what I want to do is reestablish the Fireside Bar as the Old Blue Front Opera House and Good Time Emporium.
Yeah!
Yeah, woo, yeah. You know, I want to have a gift shop, a restaurant, a pool hall, and do all this shit, you know? Hey, and every night is ladies' night.
So what about the night Matthew Shepard was here?
Oh, we had karaoke night that night. 20 or 30 people here. Matthew Shepard came in, sitting right where you're sitting, actually, just hanging out. You know, if you want to talk to somebody, you should really talk to Matt Galloway. He was the kid that was bartending that night. You'd have to meet him. His character stands for itself.
Your boss.
Thank you. I'll keep you around. Is Galloway bartending tonight? All right.
Okay, I'm gonna make this brief, quick, just get it over with, okay? But it'll be everything, factual, just the facts, okay? Here we go. So, Tuesday night, I clock in 10 o'clock, which is normal for a Tuesday, and about 10:30, Matthew Shepard shows up, and he sits down, and he orders a Heineken. Bill LeBrie, friend of Matthew Shepard.
Matt liked to drink nothing but Heineken. Heineken, even though you have to pay $9.50 for a six-pack. He'd always buy the same beer.
So what can I tell you about Matthew? If you had 100 customers like him, it'd be the most perfect bar you've ever been in, okay? And nothing to do with sexual orientation. Just absolute mannerisms. You know, manners, politeness, intelligence, taking care of me, as in tips. Everything, you know, he was good conversation, clean cut, you know, dressed really nice. So he just kicks it there, and he didn't look like he was worried about anything or like he was looking for anyone. He's just sitting there enjoying his drink and the company around. And about 11:30, 11:45, 11:30, that's when Aaron McKinney and Russell Henderson show up. And I didn't know them then, but, you know, they're the accused, they're the perps, the accused. And they came in just very, like, stone-faced, you know, and really, you know, dirty and grungy and rude, you know, gimme, you know, that kind of attitude. And they come in, and I don't know if you know this yet or not, but they paid for a pitcher of beer in only dimes and quarters. And that's just crazy, right? That's $5.50 in all dimes and quarters. And as a bartender, that's a freaking nightmare, okay? So they come in, and they don't seem like intoxicated or anything like that. They just come in, and they take their pitcher, and they go back into the pool area, by the pool table. And about a half hour later, I notice that they're walking around again with no beer. And I remember that because I remember thinking, I'm not going to ask them if they want another one because, as I just said, they paid for an entire pitcher in only dimes and quarters. So I'm pretty sure they don't have any more money. Romaine Patterson.
Money meant nothing to Matt because he came from a lot of it. I mean, he'd just whip out his wallet in like 2 seconds. Yeah, money meant nothing to him. His shoes might have meant something. They can say it was a robbery all they want, but I don't buy it. Not even for an iota of a second.
So then a couple moments later, I look over, and Aaron and Russell have been talking to Matthew Shepard.
Aaron said that a guy walked up to him and Russ and said that he was gay and wanted to get with him.
Kristen Price, girlfriend of Aaron McKinney.
And Aaron got aggravated with it and told him he was straight and wanted nothing to do with him. He said that's when he went to the bathroom with Russ and they decided to pretend they were gay, get him in the truck, and rob him. They wanted to teach him a lesson not to come on to straight people.
Okay, no. They're saying that Matt approached them, that he came on to them. But I absolutely, positively disbelieve and refute that statement 100%. Refute it. And I'll give you 2 reasons why. One is character reference. Why would he come on to them? I mean, why them? He wasn't coming on to anyone else at the bar. And I know what they're going to say. He's gay. He's a flaming gay. He's going to come on to people like that. But he wasn't approaching anyone else. He never approached me. I mean, hello? They're saying that he approached them, and I don't believe that. 2, territorialism is the word that I'll use for this. So this was Matt's area, okay? When Aaron and Russell first came in, they were in the pool area. And on their first interaction, they're in Matt's area. They're where Matt's been all night. So who approached who by that?
Matthew never had a problem talking to anybody. If someone came up to him, he'd just be like, oh, blah, 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 blah. You know, he never had a problem striking up a conversation with anyone.
Matt did feel lonely a lot of times. Me knowing that, and knowing how gullible he could be, he would have walked right into it. The fact that he was at the bar alone without any friends made him that much more vulnerable.
So the thing is, and this is basically what I'm testifying to because I'm kind of the star witness in this whole thing. What I'm testifying to is that I saw Matt leave. And I saw 2 people leave with him. I didn't see their faces, but like I saw the back of their heads. And at the same time, Aaron and Russell are no longer around. So you do the math.
Actually, I think the DJ was the last one to talk to him before he left the bar that night. Gave him a cigarette or something. His name was Shadow.
Shadow, 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 shadow.
Everybody get up and dance! I was the last one that Matt talked to before he left the fireside. I was just bullshitting around with my shit, and he stopped me. I stopped him, actually. And he was like, hey, Shadow! And I was like, what, man? You getting ready to leave? And he was like, yeah, man, and this and that, you know? Am I right? But then, I saw the 2 guys standing out there, and you can see them standing out there. And I was standing talking to Matt for like a good 10 minutes. And Matt was looking back over to them, and they were looking back over to him, and vice versa. And you can see those guys standing out there, you can see them getting all like nervous, you know? Like anxious to leave and shit. So when it came time for them to leave, you can see when it came time for them to leave, it was in a black truck. It was in a small truck. And the 3 of them sat in the front seat, and Matt sat in the middle. And I didn't think nothing of it, you know? I didn't think them guys was gonna be like that. A friend of Aaron McKinney's.
Oh, Aaron. I've known Aaron a long time. I like Aaron a lot. Or, well, I liked him. That's why I was so shocked when I heard this. I'm like, all right, I know he was living that far out at his trailer park with his girl is what he told me. And they just started dating last summer, and they already have a kid. He was like 21 years old, and he was running around with a little kid. That's just the kind of guy he was, you know? He was always running around in big kid clothes, you know, like Tommy Hilfiger and Polo and Gucci, you know? And at the time I knew him, he was just a kid. Trying to fit in, you know? Acting tough, acting cool. You could get in his face about it, and he'd back down. That's it. He was just a scared kid. Sherry Anderson.
Russell was just so sweet. I mean, he was the Eagle Scout. His whole presence was just quiet and sweet. And of course, it doesn't make any sense to me. And I know people snap and whatever. And it wasn't like a real intimate relationship. I was just his landlord. I did work with him at the Chuck Wagon too. I remember at the Christmas party at the Chuck Wagon, you know, he saw him and he was just drunk out of his mind. Like we all pretty much were. Like, woo! Party time! And I saw him and he wasn't belligerent. He didn't change. His personality didn't change. And I saw him from across the room, and he came over to me, and he said, when you get the chance, Sherry, can I have a dance? Which, you know,
we never did get around to doing, but now I just want to shake him, you know? Like, what were you thinking? What in the hell were you thinking?
Stephanie Meade Johnson. The fence. I've been out there 4 times. I've taken visitors. That place has become a pilgrimage site. Clearly, that's a very powerful, personal experience to go out there. It's so stark and so empty, and you can't help but think of Matthew out there for 18 hours in near freezing temperatures with that view out there isolated, and the "God, my God, why have you forsaken me?" comes to mind. Company member Greg Periotti.
Phil LeBrie, friend of Matthew's, took us out to the fence this morning. I broke down the second I touched it. I just feel such a strong kinship with that young man. On the way back, I made sure no one saw me crying.
Greg was crying on the way back.
Leave Hundakowski.
I felt the same way. Today we have an interview with Aaron Kreifels, the boy who found Matthew. I don't think I'm up for it. I might find someone else to do it.
Well, I took off on my bike about 5 p.m. on Wednesday from my dorm. I just sort of felt like going for a ride, so I went up to the top of Cactus Canyon. And now I'm not really familiar with that area, so on my way back down, I didn't know where I was going. I was just sort of picking my way to go, which now it just makes me think that God wanted me to find him, because there was no way that I was going to go that way. So I was in some deep-ass sand, and I wanted to turn around, but for some reason I didn't. I just kept going. And there was this rock on the ground, and I just drilled it. I went over the handlebars and ended up on the ground. I got up, I was dusting myself off, and I was looking around, and that's when I saw something, which turned out to be Matthew. And he was just lying there by the fence. I thought he was a scarecrow. Seriously, I was like, Halloween's coming up? I thought it was a Halloween gag, so I didn't think much of it. So I got my bike and walked it around the fence that was there. It was a buck-type fence. I got closer, and that's when I noticed his hair. And that was a major key to me realizing it was a human being, was his hair, because I just thought he was a dummy. Seriously, I even noticed his chest going up and down, but I just thought it was some sort of mechanism. But when I saw his hair, that's when I knew it was a human being. So I just ran. I just ran as fast as I could to the nearest house and called the police.
I responded to the call.
Sergeant Reggie Flutie.
When I got there, at first the only thing I could see was partially somebody's feet, so I got out of my vehicle and I raced over and I seen what appeared to be a young man about maybe 13 or 14 years old, because he was so tiny and he was laying on his back and he was barely breathing, and I did the best I could, and the gentleman that was laying on the ground, Matthew Shepard, he was covered in blood, and he was lying in a pool of his own blood, and he was doing the best he could. And I tried to breathe for him. I tried to get his mouth open. I wanted to breathe for him, but I couldn't get his mouth open, and he was covered in blood all over his head and his face, and the only place where there was no blood was where he'd been crying down his face, and his head did not look normal. You know, it looked distorted. It looked as though he had had a really harsh head wound.
I was working the emergency room the night Matthew Shepard was brought in.
Dr. Cantway.
And I don't think any of us can remember the last time we saw someone in that condition. Those of us who have worked at big city hospitals, we have seen this. But not everybody here has worked at a big city hospital, and it's really not something that you'd expect. You'd expect these kind of injuries from a car rolling down a hill at 80 miles an hour. You'd expect to see something like that from that. But you don't expect to see it from somebody doing it to another person. But we saw the ambulance report, so we knew.
There was nothing that I could have done. If there was anything that I could have done, I would have done it, but there was nothing. And he was just lying there, and I was trying to get something out of him, like, hey, wake up, hello. But he didn't move. He didn't flinch. He didn't anything.
He was tied to the fence, and his hands were thumbs out in what we like to call a cuffing position. It's the way we handcuff people, and he was tied with a real thin white rope that wrapped around the bottom end of a pole about 4 inches up off the ground, and his shoes were missing, and I tried to cut him down, and I tried to use my boot knife and slip it in between the rope and his wrist, but I had to be extremely careful not to hurt him any more than he was already hurting.
Your first thought, well, you'd certainly like to think that it's somebody from out of town who comes through and beats somebody. These things do happen. Shit happens. And it happens in Laramie, but when you hear that it's somebody that's been beaten repeatedly, no, that is certainly something that offends us. And I think that is a good word. It offends us.
And he was tied to the fence, and he'd been left there for God knows how long, and I just... I'm sorry. So, we laid him on his side, but when we did that, he stopped breathing, so we laid him back on his back, and that was enough of an adjustment for me to cut him down there. And that was when I seen the EMS unit coming up the hill, and when it got there, we placed a neck collar on him, and we put him on a backboard, and we slid him under the fence, and that's when Robin drove the EMS unit down to Ivinson Hospital's emergency room.
The strange thing is, 2 days before I found out, Matthew was brought to the emergency room. Aaron McKinney was also brought to the emergency room. Now, apparently he had gotten into a fight later on that night in town, and so his girlfriend brought him in. So I'm working on Aaron, and then the ambulance comes in with Matthew. And now, as I said, at this time, I don't know that there's a connection at all. So I go to work on Matthew, and so here we have Aaron in one room of the ER, and Matthew in another 2 doors down. Now, as soon as I saw Matthew, it was clear that his care was beyond our capabilities, so I called up the neurosurgeon at Poudre Valley Hospital in Fort Collins, Colorado. He was on the road in an hour and 15 minutes, I believe.
They showed me a picture, days later, a picture of Matthew. I never would have recognized him.
Two days later, when I found out the connection, I was very struck. They were 2 kids. They were both my patients, and they were 2 kids. I treated both of them, both of their bodies. And for a brief moment, I wondered if this is how God feels when he looks down at us, how we are all his kids, our bodies, our souls. And I felt a great deal of compassion for both of them.
is Joe Peacock, Matthew's academic advisor.
Well, the news reports started trickling out on Thursday, but no names were mentioned. The brutality of the crime was not mentioned. All that was mentioned was that there was a man, a Laramie man, found beaten out on the prairie, basically. Later on in the evening, they mentioned his name. It's like, that's not the Matthew Shepard I know. That's not my student. That's not this person who I've been meeting with.
I was in the coffee shop.
Romaine Patterson.
And someone said, I don't know much, but they say there's been a man beaten in Laramie and that his name was Matthew Shepard. He was like, do you think this could be our Matthew? And I was like, yeah. Sounds like it could be our Matthew. So I called up my sister Trish and I said, tell me what you know. I'm just like, please tell me anything you know because I don't know anything.
So I'm talking to my sister on the phone, and that's when the whole story came up on Channel 5 News, and it was just like, ba-boom.
And the news reports kept rolling in. Young University of Wyoming student. His age, his description, it's like, oh my God.
And I just felt sick to my stomach, just instantly sick to my stomach, and I had to tell Romaine, yes, it was Matthew. It was your friend.
Well, I'll tell you what's overwhelming.
Matt Galloway.
Fridays, when I first found out about it, I get up, I go to class, and when I get out, boom, there it is in the branding iron. So I get in my car and I drive to the nearest newsstand because I want to get the Laramie Boomerang so I can get more details. And when I go home, before I can even open the newspaper, my boss calls me and he says,
did you hear about what happened?
I'm like, yeah.
Was he in the bar Tuesday night?
I said, yes, he was.
You've got to get down to the bar right now. We need to talk about what's going to go on.
By this time, I'm starting to get upset, but still, the severity wasn't out yet. It was Thursday afternoon. Rula and Stacy at Fuji Valley Hospital. We got a call. We've got a kid helicoptered in from Wyoming, and it looks like he may be the victim of a hate crime. We've got a couple of reporters here asking questions. And so we decided we needed one spokesperson. As CEO, I'll do that, and we'll try to gather all the information that we can.
That night, I watched the 10 o'clock news, where they talked about the nature and the seriousness of it.
So I'm on the phone with Mickelson, and he's like,
we need to go down to the arraignment so we can identify these guys and make sure these guys were in the bar.
So we go to the arraignment.
Our focus today turns to Laramie, Wyoming at the Albany County Courthouse, where Russell Arthur Henderson and Aaron James McKinney are being charged with the brutal beating of Matthew Shepard, a gay University of Wyoming student.
The arraignment was on Friday.
Katherine Connolly.
Right around lunchtime, and I said, I'm just going. I just took off. So I walked a few blocks, and I went. Has anyone told you about the arraignment? Okay. There are probably about 100 people from town, and probably as many news media by that point. More of the details had come out. The fact that the perpetrators were kids themselves, local kids, that everyone who's from around here has some relationship to. And what everyone was really, I think, waiting on pins and needles to see what would happen when the perpetrators walked in. And what happened, okay, there's 200 people in the room at this point. And they walk in their complete orange jumpsuits and their shackles. And you could have heard a pin drop. It was incredibly solemn. I mean, lots of people were teary at that point. Then the judge came in and did a reading. There was a reading of the evidence that the prosecution has. It's a statement of facts. And the reading of the facts was,
the essential facts are that the defendants, Aaron James McKinney and Russell Arthur Henderson, met Matthew Shepard at the Fireside Bar. And after Mr. Shepard confided he was gay, deceived Mr. Shepard into leaving with them in their vehicle to a remote area. Upon arrival at said area, both subjects tied their victim to a buck fence, robbed him, tortured him, and beat him. Both subjects were later contacted by officers of the Laramie Police Department, who observed inside the cab of their pickup a credit card and a pair of black patent leather shoes belonging to the victim, Matthew Shepard.
I don't think there was any person who was left in that courtroom who wasn't crying at the end of it. The meeting lasted, what, 5 minutes? But kept getting more and more horrific, ending with,
Said defendants left the victim begging for his life.
How could this...
Sergeant Hinton.
How could this happen? People don't understand how someone could do something like this. We have one of the most vocal populations of gay people in the state. It's pretty much live and let live.
Laramie resident Jenny Lockwood.
Now, my secret hope was that they were from somewhere else. Then you can create that distance, you know? We don't grow children like that here. Well, I think it's pretty clear that we do grow children like that here.
so that was the arraignment, and my response was pretty catatonic. Not sleeping, not eating, don't leave me alone right now.
More and more details came in about the sheer brutality, the motivations, how this happened. And then, quite frankly, the media descended and there was no time to talk on it anymore.
Laramie, Wyoming, often called the gem city of the plains, is now at the eye of the storm.
Aaron McKinney and his friend Russell Henderson came over the poor side of town.
As a gay college student, they hospitalized in critical condition after a severe beating.
People would like to believe that what happened to Matthew was an exception to the rule, but it's really an extreme version of what happens in our schools on a daily basis.
After a severe beating.
It's a tough business, Matthew Shepard once knew it, as his friends all know, to be gay in cowboy country.
It was huge. Yeah, it was herds, and we're talking hundreds of reporters, which makes a huge dent in this town's population. There's news reporters everywhere, news trucks everywhere on campus, everywhere in town. And we're not used to that type of attention to begin with. We're not used to that type of exposure.
Ty Edwards, local reporter.
These people are predators. Like, this one journalist actually caught one of the judges at the urinal and was, like, asking him questions. And the judge was like, excuse me, can I please have some privacy? And the journalist was, like, offended that he asked for privacy. I mean, this is not how journalism started. Like, the Gutenberg Press, you know?
Doc O'Connor, limousine driver. It's a gay college student.
I'll tell you what, when hard copy came and taped me, I taped them at the exact same time. I have every word I ever said on tape, so if they ever do anything funny, they better watch their fucking ass.
Wyoming Governor Jim Geringer, first Republican up for re-election.
I am sickened and outraged by the heinous crime committed on Matthew Shepard, and I extend my most heartfelt sympathies to his family.
Governor, you haven't pushed toward hate crime legislations in the past.
I would urge the people of Wyoming against overreacting in a way that would give special groups certain rights that are over others. We will wait, and we will see if the vicious beating and torture of Matthew Shepard was indeed motivated by hate.
Governor, please, one more question, Governor, please, come back, Governor, please.
We've got the beginning of the news story, and in the background it says, murder in Wyoming. And Wyoming's dripping red like it's got blood coming from it or something. I'm thinking, wait a second. We had these guys in jail in less than a day. I think that's pretty damn good.
And for us to be more or less maligned?
Eileen and Gil Lincoln.
That we're not a good people, and we are. The majority of people here are good people.
You get a few bad apples, and I think that the gay community said, this is something we can exploit. Let's take advantage of this. Bill McKinney, father of the accused.
Had this been a heterosexual that these two boys decided to take out and rob, this never would have made the national news. Now my son is guilty before he's even had a trial.
Look, I actually think that the media held people accountable because people were like sitting in their homes and watching CNN and listening to Dan Rather and going, Jesus Christ, well, that's not how it is here. Well, how is it here?
Rulon Stacy, CEO, Poudre Valley Hospital.
At this point, I looked out, and where there had been 2 or 3 reporters, there was another 20 or 30 reporters, 10 or 15 still photographers, and 10 video cameras. And the parents had just arrived, and those poor people, I barely introduced myself to them. I looked out there, and I thought, my gosh, what am I going to do?
Matthew Shepard medical update at 3 p.m. Saturday, October 10th.
Matthew Shepard was admitted in critical condition at approximately 9:15 p.m. October 7th. Matthew's major injuries upon arrival consisted of hypothermia and a fracture from the back of his head to just behind the right ear. This has caused bleeding in the brain as well as pressure on the brain. There were also several lacerations on his head, face, and neck. Matthew's temperature has fluctuated over the past 24 hours, ranging from 98 to 106 degrees. We have had difficulty controlling his temperature. Matthew's parents arrived at approximately 7 p.m. October 9th and are now at his bedside. The following is a statement from them. First of all, we wish to extend our thanks to the American public for their kind thoughts about Matthew and their fond wishes for his speedy recovery. We appreciate your prayers and goodwill and know they are something Matthew would appreciate too. We also have a special request for the members of the media. Matthew is very much in need of his family at this time, and we ask that you respect our privacy, as well as Matthew's, so that we can concentrate all of our efforts, thoughts, and love on our son. Thank you very much.
Both Aaron McKinney and Russell Henderson pled not guilty to charges. Their girlfriends, Chastity Pasley and Kristen Price, also pled not guilty after being charged as accessories after the fact. On our next trip to Laramie, we spoke with Detective Sergeant Robin DeBree, the chief investigating officer on the case.
I guess the thing that bothered me the most was when I went down to Poudre Valley where Matthew was, and the thing that bothered me the most is seeing him, touching him. I mean, as a homicide detective, you look at bodies, but this poor boy is sitting here, fighting all his life, just trying to make it. I wanted it so by the book, you know?
The worst part for me is seeing that picture in my head.
Aaron Craples.
It's not pleasant whatsoever. I don't want it there. I want to, like, get it out. It's kind of unbelievable to me, you know, that I happen to be the one that found him. I guess the biggest question for me, like with my religion, is why did God want me to find him?
I know how to take care of myself, and I was irrationally terrified.
Catherine Connolly.
So what that means is not letting my 12-year-old son walk the streets, seeing a truck do a U-turn and thinking, it's coming after me! Having to stop because I am shaking so bad. And in fact, the truck did not come after me, but my reaction, my response, was to have my heart in my throat.
You know, no matter how you dice it, I did have an opportunity.
Matt Galloway.
Like if I had amazing hindsight 2020 to stop what occurred. And I keep thinking there was something I could have done. There must have been. Like, I should have known. These guys shouldn't be talking to this guy. I should have had my head down for 20 seconds while I'm washing dishes. Just things that I could have done, you know? What the hell was I thinking?
So you do a lot of studying.
Detective Robin DeBree.
You spend hours and hours and hours. You study and study and study, talking to the officers, making sure they understand. Talk to your witnesses again, and then always coming back to, I get this flash of seeing Matthew. I wanted it so tight that there was no way they were going to get out of it.
Well, one of the things that happened when I got to the fence,
Officer Reggie Flutie.
it was just such an overwhelming amount of blood, you know, and we tried to wear protective gloves, but we had a really cheap sheriff at the time, and he kept buying us shit gloves, you know, you put them on, you put them on, you put them on, and you keep running out. So finally you just have to tell yourself, you know what, all right, don't hesitate. That's just what your mind tells you to do at the time, you know, don't hesitate. Just try to help Matthew and to find an airway, and that's just what you do. You do not hesitate.
The thing I wasn't telling you before is that Officer Reggie is my daughter.
Marge Murray.
And when she first told me she wanted to be a police officer, well, I thought there was not a better choice for her. She can handle whatever comes her way.
Well, probably a day and a half later, the hospital called me and told me that Matthew had HIV. And he said, "You've been exposed. You've had a bad exposure because, you see, I'd been building a lean-to for my llamas, and my hands had a bunch of open cuts on them, and so I was kind of screwed." And you think, shoot, you know.
I tried to talk about losing sleep.
So I said to the doctor, "All right, well, what do I do?" And they said, "Get up here." So I got up there, and we started the ATZ drugs immediately.
Now, they told me that's a medication that if it's administered 36 hours after you've been exposed, it can maybe stop you from getting the disease.
I tell you, that is a mean, nasty medicine, all right? Real mean. I mean, I lost like 10 pounds and a lot of my hair.
And quite frankly, I wanted to lash out at somebody. Well, not at Matthew. Please understand that. None of us was mad at Matthew, but, you know, I maybe wanted to squeeze McKinney's head off. And you think about Henderson, and two absolutely human beings cause so much grief for so many people. It has just been terrible for my whole family. But mostly for her and her kids.
I think it really drove home to my girls what their mom does for a living.
Well, Reggie, you know what I'm going to tell you now.
And my parents, you know, they both said the same damn thing.
You're quitting this damn job!
And it's just a parent thing. You have to tell yourself that, you know, because they're proud of you, whether you're handling a drunk or you're handling a case like this, but they just don't want you getting hurt.
Like I said, there's a right way, a wrong way, and then there's Reggie's way.
So finally I had to tell you, you know, all right, for God's sake, Francis, lighten up.
You are so
Oh
stubborn.
my God, and they say I'm stubborn, and I don't believe them because I just think, all right, you know what? I've heard your opinion, and now here's mine. I'm 29 years old, for God's sake. What are you going to do, spank me?
Reggie,
Yes?
don't give me any ideas.
Yeah, well, that would be pretty silly, you know. What can they say?
I just hope she doesn't go before me. I just couldn't handle that.
University President Philip Dubois.
Well, there was this young person, and they had read my statement in the Denver Post, and they emailed me directly, and they said,
"You and the straight people of Laramie and Wyoming are guilty of the beating of Matthew Shepard, just as the Germans who looked the other way are guilty of the deaths of the Jews, the gypsies, and the homosexuals. You have taught your straight children to hate their gay brothers and sisters. Unless and until you admit that Matt Shepard's beating was not just a random occurrence, not just the work of a couple of random crazies, you have Matt's blood on your hands."
and I can't begin to tell you what that does to you. And you don't know what I'm thinking. You don't know how this has affected me, and my family, and my community.
That first week alone, vigils for Matthew Shepard were held in Laramie, Denver, Fort Collins, and Colorado Springs. Soon after, in Detroit, Chicago, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Nashville, Minneapolis, and Portland, Maine, among others. In Los Angeles, 5,000 people gathered. And in New York City, a political rally ended in civil disobedience and hundreds of arrests. And the Poudre Valley Hospital website received close to 1 million visitors from across the country and around the world, all expressing hope for Matthew's recovery. Matthew Shepard medical update at 9 a.m. Sunday, October 11th.
As of 9 a.m. today, Matthew Shepard remains in critical condition. The family continues to emphasize that the media respect their privacy. The family also wishes to thank the American public for their kind thoughts and concern for Matthew.
There are certain things when I sit in church,
Jedediah Schultz.
and the Reverend will tell you flat out that he doesn't agree with homosexuality. And I don't know, I think right now I'm still learning about myself, and I'm still going through changes. And quite frankly, I don't think I know enough about certain things to make a decision that says homosexuality is right. When you've been raised your whole life that it's wrong, and I think right now I don't agree with it. Yeah, I don't agree with it, but maybe that's just because I couldn't do it. And speaking in religious terms, I don't think that's how God intended it to happen. But I don't hate homosexuals or anything like that. And I'm not going to persecute them or anything like that. I mean, this isn't going to get between me and any other person at all.
I'm a Catholic. That's how I was brought up.
Aaron Kreifels.
Love the person for who they are, but condemn what they do. Condemn the lifestyle. It's like you're almost taught that you need to be scared of gay people for some reason. You just have this feeling that you need to be scared, and I don't know. I feel bad that it happened to Matthew Shepard, you know, as a human being. But I don't really feel more sympathetic towards the gay community because of it.
Well, it's preached in schools that being gay is okay.
Conrad Miller.
And yada, yada, yada. And if my kids ask me, first thing I do, I would pick them up, you know? And then I'd set them down, and I'd tell them, this is what gay people do. This is what animals do, okay? And I tell them, this is the life. This is the lifestyle. And then I say, this is why I believe it's wrong.
There's more gay people around than what you think.
Murdoch Cooper.
It doesn't bother anybody, because most people that are gay or lesbian, they know damn well who to talk to. If you step out of line, you're asking for it. Now, they're saying that Matthew hit on them. That makes me feel a little better, because it's partially Matthew Shepard's fault. It's partially the fault of the guys who did it. You know, maybe 50-50.
Yes, as a lesbian, I was more concerned for my safety.
Zachy Salmon.
I think we all were. And I think it's because somewhere inside, we know it could happen to us anytime. I mean, I would be afraid to walk down the street and display any sort of physical affection with my partner. You don't do that here in Laramie.
Well, there's this whole idea. You leave me alone, I'll leave you alone.
Jonas Slomaker.
And it's even all in the Western literature, you know, live and let live. And that is such crap. Even my gay friends bring it up sometimes, and I'm just like, that is such crap, you know? Basically what it boils down to is this. If I don't tell you I'm a faggot, you won't beat the crap out of me. What's so great about that, huh? That's great philosophy?
We went to the candle vigil.
Zavita Hula.
And it was so good to be with people who felt like shit. I kept feeling like I don't deserve to feel this bad, you know? And then someone got up there and he said, blah, 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 blah. And then he said, I'm saying it wrong, but basically what he said was, come on, guys, let's show people that Laramie is not that kind of town. But it is that kind of town. If it wasn't that kind of town, why did this happen here? You know what I mean? Like, that's a lie, because it happened here. So how could it not be a town where this kind of thing happens? I mean, that's like looking at an Escher painting and getting all confused. Like, that's just totally circular logic. Like, how can you even say that? And we have to mourn this. And we have to be sad about the fact that we live in a town, a state, a country where shit like this happens. I mean, these are people trying to distance themselves from the crime. And we need to own this crime, I feel. Everyone needs to own it. We're like this. We are like this. We are like this.
I was at the Fireside Bar one afternoon, and I had the pleasure of meeting a couple of friends of Aaron McKinney, Shannon and Jen. You guys knew Aaron well, yeah?
Yeah, we both did. When I first found out about this, I thought it was really, really awful. I didn't know whether Aaron was fucked up or whether he was coming down or what, but shit, Matthew had money. Matthew had better clothes than I did. Matthew was a little rich bitch.
Hey, you shouldn't call him a little rich bitch, though. That's not right.
Well, I'm not saying he's a bad guy. He was just at the wrong place at the wrong time. He said the wrong things. And I won't lie to you, man. There were times I was all messed up on that.
Yeah, and he was.
And I thought about going out and robbing. I mean, I never did. But yeah, it's there. It's easy money.
Aaron's done that kind of thing before. Shit, they've both done it. Oh, I remember that one night, they went down to Cheyenne to go do it, and they came back with probably $300. Oh! And man, I don't know if they ever like chose gay people as like their particular targets, but shit, man, anybody who looked like they got money, any
know, they could, like, outnumber, overpower. It's fair game, man.
Fair game.
And do you think there could have been some homophobia that could have contributed to this?
I mean, probably. The gay people I've, like, seen Aaron interact with, you know, he didn't really like gay. I mean, like, the gay people I've seen him interact with, he was fine as long as, you know, it didn't come up, they didn't hit on him.
As long as they weren't doing it in front of him.
You get the impression he knew a lot of gay people. I'm sure that he knew people that are gay. I mean, he worked up at KFC, and yeah, there are a couple people out there that... and I'm not saying it's bad or anything, because I don't know, half the people I know in Laramie are gay. What would you guys say to Aaron if you saw him now?
Well, first I'd ask him if you ever do any more tweak.
You wouldn't, I bet. If I saw Aaron now, I'd be like, man, why'd you fuck up like that? But I probably just want to see him, hang out with him, make sure he's doing all right, but man, I'm sure he is.
Smoke a bowl with him?
Oh, I bet he wants it so bad.
You guys both went to Laramie High, huh?
Yeah, can't you tell? We're a product of our society, man.
On a day that is typically given over to nothing more than collegiate exuberance and the fortunes of the University of Wyoming football team, this community on the High Plains is having a different kind of homecoming Saturday, as many search their souls in the wake of a vicious, apparent anti-gay hate crime. University of Wyoming President Philip Dubois.
Well, this was homecoming weekend, and there was a parade scheduled, and there's a lot of people coming to town. And the students had organized a tag onto the back behind the banner in support of Matthew, and everyone was wearing armbands that the students had made.
I live in the center of town.
Mary Woods.
And my apartment has two windows on opposite sides of the street. One goes north and one goes south. Now that is exactly the homecoming parade route. Now, on the day of the parade, I remember I had a cast on my leg because of a fall. And I was really disappointed because I really wanted to walk with the people that were marching for Matthew, but I couldn't. So I watched from my window, and let me tell you, it was just, I'm 32 years old, and I'm gay. I have lived here for a long time, and I've seen a lot. And I was very moved when I saw the tag at the end of the homecoming parade. About 100 people walking behind a banner for Matthew Shepard. So then the parade went down to the end of the street to make a U-turn, and I went to the other side of my apartment to watch it come south, down the other side of the street.
I was right up at the front by the tag that they made for Matthew.
Matt Galloway.
And let me tell you, it was absolutely amazing. I mean, I've never had goosebumps for so long in my whole life. I mean, there was a mass of people out there, and like whole families, like mothers holding their little 6-year-olds, and they're trying to tie the armbands around them and trying to explain to them why. Like why it's important that we wear the armbands. And it was incredible. It was the most beautiful thing that I've ever seen in my whole life.
Well, about 10 minutes went by, and sure enough, the parade started coming down the street. But then I noticed the most incredible thing. As the parade came down the street, the number of people marching for Matthew had grown 5 times. There were at least 500 people marching for Matthew. Can you imagine 500 people? The tag at the end was larger than the entire parade, and people kept joining in. And you know what? I started to cry. Tears were streaming down my face, and I thought, thank God I get to see this in my lifetime. And my second thought was, thank you, Matthew.
I really haven't been all that involved, per se. My husband's a highway patrolman, so that's the only way that I've known about it. Now, when I first found out, I just thought it was terrible. Just terrible. Nobody deserves that. I don't care who you are. But the other thing that happened at the same time that didn't come out was that patrolman was killed, and there was nothing. Nothing. Nothing about the old man that killed him. He was driving down the road, and he shouldn't have been driving, and we killed him. And here's one of ours, and there's just this little piece in the paper. And, you know, my husband worked with him. And this man was brand new on the force. But here's one of ours, and there's just a little piece in the paper. And, you know, a lot of my feeling is that the media is portraying him as a saint and making Matthew a martyr. And I don't think he was. I don't think he was that pure. Now, I didn't know him, but just everything I found out about his character and spreading AIDS and just being the kind of person that he was, it's just scary, you know? He was just a barfly, and I think he flaunted it. I think he pushed himself around. Everybody's got problems. Why they exemplified him, I don't know. What's the difference if you're gay? A hate crime's a hate crime. If you murder somebody and you hate them, it doesn't matter if you're a gay or a prostitute or whatever. I don't understand. I don't understand.
Today is one of the last days on our second trip to Laramie. Greg and I have been conducting interviews non-stop and are exhausted.
We were to meet Father Roger at 7:30 in the morning. I wish we could skip it all together, but here we go, 7:30 a.m. 2 queers and a Catholic priest.
Matthew Shepard has served us well. You realize that. He has served us well. And I do not mean to condemn Matthew to perfection, but I cannot mention anyone who has done more for this community than Matthew Shepard. And I'm not going to sit here and say I was this bold guy, no fear. I was scared. I was very vocal in the community when this happened, and I thought, you know, should we call the bishop and ask his permission to do the vigil? And then I thought, hell no, I'm not going to do that. His permission does not make it correct. Do you realize that? And I'm not knocking bishops, but what is correct is correct. You people are just here on a search, though, and I will do this, and I will trust that if you write a play of this, you do your best to say it right, to say it correct. I think you have a responsibility to do that. Don't make matters worse. You think violence is what they did to Matthew? They did do violence to Matthew. But you know, every time that you are called a fag, or you are called a les, or whatever.
Or a dyke.
Yes, a dyke. Do you realize that is violence? That is a seed of violence. And I would regret it immensely if you took anything I said to cultivate that kind of violence, even in its smallest form. I would regret it immensely, and you need to know that.
Thank you for saying that, Father.
Thank you, Father. Just deal with what is true, and you know what is true. And you must do your best to say it correct. Andrew Gomez.
I was in there. I was in jail with Aaron in December. Got thrown in over Christmas. Assault and battery, 2 counts. Don't want to talk about it. But we were sitting there, eating our Christmas dinner, trying to eat my stuffing, my motherfucking bread, my little roll and whatnot. And they asked him, hey, homie, tell me something. Tell me something, please. Why did you, okay, I'm thinking how I worded this. Why did you kill a faggot if you're going to be a faggot later? I mean, think about that. He's either going to get humped a lot or he's going to die. So why would you do that? I don't understand that. And you know what he told me? Honest to God, this is what he said. He goes, he tried to grab my dick. He's dumb, dog. He don't even act like it was nothing. Nah, I heard they was auctioning those boys off up in the Max ward, you know, where the killers go. I heard that when they found out Aaron was coming to prison, they was auctioning those boys off. I want him. I'll put a 5, 6, 7 cartons of cigarettes. Auction his ass off. I'd be scared to go to prison if I was those 2 boys.
Hello?
Hi, Reverend?
Yes, hello.
I believe your wife told you a little bit about why I'm calling?
Yes, she did. Let me tell you, I don't know if I really want to talk to anyone about any of this incident. I am somewhat involved, and I just don't think that...
Oh, no, I completely understand. You know, I went to your services on Sunday.
You went to the service on Sunday?
Yes.
Did I meet you?
Yes, I believe you welcomed us at the beginning.
Oh, I see. Well, let me tell you, I am not afraid to be controversial or to speak my mind. And that is not necessarily the views of my congregation per se. Now, as I said, I am somewhat involved in, well, half the people of that case. Well, the girlfriend of the accused, Kristen Price, well, she's a member of our congregation. And one of the accused, Aaron McKinney, well, he has visited. Now, those 2 boys have forfeited their lives, and we've been after them for ages, trying to get them to live right, to do right. Now, one of those boys is on suicide watch, and I am trying to work with him. Until they put him in that chair and turn on the juice, I will work for his salvation.
Right, I understand.
Now, I do believe they do deserve the death penalty, but I am trying to deal with them spiritually.
Of course.
Now, as for the victim, I know that that lifestyle is legal, but I will tell you one thing. I hope that Matthew Shepard, as he was tied to that fence, that he took the time to reflect on a moment that someone has spoken the word of the Lord to him. And that before he slipped into that coma, he had a chance to reflect on his lifestyle.
Thank you, Reverend. I appreciate your speaking to me.
About 11 o'clock that night, I just gotten home, and Margot, our chief operating officer, called me and said his blood pressure has started to drop. Well, let's just wait and see. She called me about 10 after he just died. So I quick got dressed and went back in and went to the ICU where the family was. And Judy came up and she put her arms around me and I put my arms around her. And we just stood there probably for about 10 minutes because what else do you do? And then you have to talk about things that you just... Dennis, now it's public knowledge, and I am going to go out there and tell the entire world that this has happened, because it was clear to us at this point that this was the world, it was the entire world. And so Judy told me what she wanted me to say, and I went out there at 4 a.m.
Matthew Shepard medical update at 4:30 a.m. Monday, October 12th.
At 12 midnight on Monday, October 12th, Matthew Shepard's blood pressure began to drop. We immediately notified the family, who were already at the hospital. At 12:53 a.m., Matthew Shepard died. His family was at his bedside. The family did release the following statement. First of all, the family wishes to extend their thanks to the entire world for the overwhelming response for their son. The family was grateful that they did not have to make a decision regarding whether or not to continue life support for their son. Like a good son, he was caring to the end, and remove guilt or stress from the family. He came into the world premature and left the world premature. Matthew's mother said, "Go home and give your kids a hug, and don't let a day go by without telling them that you love them." And I don't know how I let that happen. I lost it on national TV. But you have to understand, we had been up for like 72 hours straight, gone home and gone to bed and had to get up and do it all over again. And maybe I was just in a moment of complete brain deadness up there reading that statement. I thought about my own 2 daughters and go home and hug your kids, you know, and she doesn't have her kid anymore, and I'm thinking this is so lame. And we started getting these emails, and most of them were generally just very kind, but I did get this one. This guy wrote to me and said, "Do you cry like a baby on TV for all your patients or just the faggots?" And I have told you, homosexuality is not a lifestyle with which I agree, but having been thrown into this, I don't think I realized the magnitude with which some people hate. And out of all the letters we got, maybe 2 or 3 were like that. Most of them were, "Thank you for your caring and compassion." And Matthew had caring and compassion from the moment he got here.
I spoke with Doc today and told him that we'd soon be returning to Laramie for the upcoming trials of Aaron McKinney and Russell Henderson. And this is what he had to say.
I'll tell you what, if they put those 2 boys to death, that would defeat everything Matt would be thinking about on them. Because Matt would not want those 2 to die. He'd want to leave them with hope. H-O-P-E. Just like the whole world hoped that Matt would survive. The whole thing. You see, the whole thing ropes around hope. H-O-P-E.
On the day of the funeral, it was snowing so bad, just big, huge, wet snowflakes. And there was a mass of people and umbrellas everywhere, and there were 2 whole churches set aside for the service. There was one that was for the immediate family and special invited guests and people of that nature. And there was a whole other church set aside for people who just wanted to be there. And still, there were hundreds of people outside, and they couldn't get into either of the churches. So there was this park that was right across the street, and that's where these people were. The liturgy for today is an Easter liturgy, and it finds its meaning in the resurrection. The service invites your full participation. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Let us pray.
And I guess it was like the worst storm they've had.
Ty Edwards.
Like, trees fell down and the power went out for a couple days because of it. And I just thought, whatever higher spirit, you know, that like blows storms was blowing this storm.
For our brother Matthew, let us pray to our Lord Jesus Christ, who said, "I am the resurrection and the life." We pray to the Lord.
Hear us, Lord.
Lord, you who counseled Martha and Mary in their distress, draw near to us who mourn for Matthew, and dry the tears of those who weep. We pray to the Lord.
Hear us, Lord.
You wept at the grave of Lazarus, your friend. Comfort us in our sorrows. We pray to the Lord.
Hear us, Lord.
You raised the dead to life. Give our brother eternal life. We pray to the Lord.
Hear us, Lord.
You promised paradise to the thief who repented. Give our brother the joys of heaven. We pray to the Lord.
Hear us, Lord.
He was nourished with your body and blood. Grant him a place at your table in your heavenly kingdom. We pray to the Lord.
Hear us, Lord.
Comfort us in our sorrows at the death of our brother. Let our faith be our consolation and eternal life our hope. We pray to the Lord.
My most striking memory from the funeral
Carrie Drake, Casper Star Tribune,
is watching the Reverend Fred Phelps from Kansas, that scene go up in the park.
Do you believe the Bible? Do you believe we should separate the precious from the vile? Oh, you don't believe that part of the Bible. You all stand over there ignorant of the fact that 2 times, for every time it talks about God's love, it talks about God's hate.
A bunch of high school kids who got out early came over and started yelling at some of these people in the protest, the Fred Phelps people. And across the street you had the funeral. Well, I remember a guy coming over, this skinhead, wearing spikes and leather everywhere. And he came over from across the street where the protest was. And I just thought, oh, this is going to be a really ugly confrontation. But he got up there and he started to lead them in Amazing Grace.
We wouldn't be here if this was just another murder the state was going to deal with. The state deals with hundreds of murders every single day. But this murder is different because the fangs would turn back to shepherd into a poster boy for the gay lifestyle. We're going to answer it. It's just that simple.
6 months later, the company returned to Laramie for the trial of Russell Henderson, the first of the 2 perpetrators. It was to be a capital murder trial. We got to the Albany County Courthouse, and Fred Phelps was already there.
Oh, you don't like that attribute of God.
But so was Romaine Patterson.
Well, God's hatred is pure. It's a determination. It's a determination that he's going to send some people to hell.
After seeing Fred Phelps protesting at Matthew's funeral and hearing he was to return to Laramie for the trial of Russell Henderson, I decided that it was time that somebody stand toe-to-toe with this guy and really show the differences. And I think in times like this, when we are talking about hatred as much as the nation is right now, somebody needs to show that there's a better way of dealing with hatred. So our idea is to dress as angels. So we've designed an angel costume for our wings are huge. They're like big-ass wings, and there'll be 10 to 20 of us, and we're going to encircle Fred Phelps, and we are going to completely block him. So this big-ass band of angels walks in. We don't say a fucking word. We stand there, and we turn our backs to him, and we are a group of people bringing forth a message of peace and love and compassion. And we're calling it angel action. Yeah, this 21-year-old little lesbian is ready to walk the line with him.
When those old preachers laid their hands upon me and called an ordination, mine was from Isaiah 58:1. Spare not. Cry aloud, lift up thy voice like a trumpet, and show my people their transgressions!
And I knew my angels were going to be taking the brunt of everything he had to deal with saying. I mean, we were completely blocking
court is now in session. Remain Patterson's sister, Trish Steger.
As soon as they started jury selection, everybody was coming into my shop with, I hope I don't get called. I don't want to be on that jury. Or, oh my God, I've been called. How do I get off? Just wanting to get as far away from it as they could. Very fearful that they would have to be a part of that jury. And then I heard Henderson had to sit in the courtroom while they questioned the prospective jurors. And one of the questions that they asked is, would you be willing to put this person to death? And I understand that a lot of those comments were, yes, I would. Absolutely, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm willing.
No problem. Of course.
Absolutely, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
These are people he grew up with. Well, could you imagine hearing that? Juror after juror after juror?
Mr. Henderson, you entered a not guilty plea earlier, but I understand you wish to change your plea today, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
You understand the recommended sentence here is 2 life sentences?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you understand those sentences may run concurrent or they may run consecutive?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Henderson, I will now ask you how you wish to plead. Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Before the court decides whether the sentencing will be concurrent or consecutive, I believe there's a statement to be made by at least one individual.
This is an excerpt of a statement made to the court by Lucy Thompson.
As the grandmother and the person who raised Russell along with the family, we have written the following statement. Our hearts ache for the pain and suffering the shepherds have went through. We have prayed for your family since the very beginning, and many times throughout the day I have thought about Matt. And you will continue to be in our thoughts and prayers as we know that your pain will never go away. You have showed such mercy in allowing us to have this plea, and we are so grateful that you are giving us all this opportunity to live. Your Honor, we as a family hope that you sentence Russell, that you do it concurrently 2 life terms. For the Russell we know and love, we humbly plead your honor to not take Russell completely out of our lives forever.
Thank you. Mr. Henderson, you have a constitutional right to make a statement if you would like to do so. Is there anything you'd like to say?
Yes, Your Honor, there is. Mr. and Mrs. Shepherd, there is not a moment that goes by that I don't see what happened that night. I know what I did was wrong. I greatly regret what I did. And you have my greatest sympathies for what happened. My hope is that one day you will be able to find it in your hearts to forgive me. Your Honor, I know what I did was very wrong. I am very sorry for what I did, and I am ready to pay my debt for what I did.
Mr. Henderson, you drove the vehicle that led Matthew Shepherd to his death. You bound him to that fence in order that he might be more savagely beaten and not escape to tell his tale. You left him there for 18 hours, knowing full well he was there, perhaps having an opportunity to save his life, and you did nothing. Mr. Henderson, this court does not believe that you feel any true remorse for your part in this matter, and I wonder, Mr. Henderson, whether you realize the gravity of what you have done. Therefore, the court finds it appropriate that the sentencing be ordered as follows. As to count 3, that being felony murder with robbery, you are to serve a period of imprisonment for the term of your natural life. As to count 1, kidnapping, you are to serve a period of imprisonment for the term of your natural life. Sentencing for count 1 to run consecutive to sentencing for count 3.
How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
After the sentencing, we spoke with Gene Pratt, Russell Henderson's Mormon home teacher.
I've known Russell's family for 38 years. Russell's only 21, so I've known him his entire life. So I ordained him a priest in the Mormon church. So after this happened, as you can imagine, disbelief. After the sentencing, the result of that was the church held a disciplinary council. And the result of that council was to excommunicate young Russell. That means their name is removed from the church records. You no longer remember them in your prayers, and they just disappeared. Russell's reaction to that was not positive. It hurt him. And it hurt him too to realize the serious transgression he had made. But I will not desert Russell. It's a matter of my relationship with the family and my faith.
Before we left Laramie again, we met with Rebecca Hilliker in the theater department. She's putting on Angels in America this year.
You know, I think that's the focus the university has taken, is that we have a lot of work to do, that we have an obligation to reach our students, and the question is, how do we move? You know, how do we reach an entire state where there's some really deep-seated hostility towards gays? How do we reach them? This is just the beginning. Oh, and guess who's auditioning for the lead?
My parents!
Get an initial!
So, my parents were like, what plays are you going to do in school this year? And I told them Angels in America, and told them the whole list of plays. And they're like, wait. Angels in America. Is that the scene you did in high school, that play you did in high school? And I said, yeah. He said, oh, are you going to audition for it? And I said, yeah. And we got into this huge argument. And the best thing that I knew I had is it was just after they had seen me in a performance of Macbeth. And on stage, I killed like Lady Macduff and 2 little kids. And my mom kept saying, well, you know, homosexuality is a sin. And she kept saying that. And I go, Mom, I played a murderer on stage tonight. And you didn't seem to have a problem with that. Man, I have never prepared for an audition like this in my life. Not even close.
Not having to deal that much with gay society here in Laramie.
Detective Sergeant Robin Debris.
Well, once we started working into the case and actually speaking to the people that were gay and finding out what their underlying fears were, well, then it sort of hit home. This is America. You don't have the right to feel that fear. And we're still gonna have people who hold with the old ideals, and I was probably one of them 14 months ago. I'm not gonna put up with it, and I'm not gonna listen to it, and if they don't like my views on it, fine. The door goes both ways. I already lost a couple of buddies, but I don't care. I'm more comfortable, and I can sleep at night.
Well, I was able to have the DNA test done.
Officer Reggie flew.
And so I went down to Fort Collins, and they took my blood there, and then they flew it off to Michigan and did all their DNA work there, and which was about a week later, I knew I was negative for good.
I'll tell you, we were all on our knees saying, Hail Marys!
I mean, all you can think to say is thank God.
So, what's the first thing she does?
I stuck my tongue right in my husband's mouth. I mean, what can I say? I was happy. I mean, all you can think is, I hope I I did this job well. You know, I hope I did it with some kind of integrity. And I was just so happy, and my daughters bawled.
They were so happy.
And the force.
Oh boy.
We went out and we got chippers. And they all bought me drinks too. It was great.
Well, Reggie, what I'm gonna tell you now.
You know, I kissed everybody who walked in through that door. I didn't care if they were male or female. They each got a kiss on the lips. Mwah!
Reggie, you don't need to say that kind of stuff around here.
Oh, get over it, Mom.
What I just said, boy, don't you understand?
Almost a year to the day that Matthew Shepard died, the trial for Aaron James McKinney was set to begin.
The question that most of you are probably wondering is how the McKinney case will proceed.
Calvarucha, prosecuting attorney.
And it's a decision of the county attorney's office that will definitely be a death penalty case.
Marge Murray.
You know, part of me wants McKinney to get it, but I'm not very proud of that. I was off and on and off. I can't really say what I would do. I'm too personally involved.
Zachy Salmon.
Oh, I believe in the death penalty 100%, okay? Because I want to make sure that guy's ass dies. This is one instance where I truly believe with all my heart, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth.
Matt Nicholson.
Well, I don't know about the death penalty, but I don't ever want to see him walk out of Rollins Penitentiary. I'll pay my nickel or whatever, my little percentage of tax, nickel a day, to make sure that his ass stays in there and never walks out. And damn sure never walks into my bar again.
Matt Galloway.
I don't believe in the death penalty. It's too much for me. I don't believe that one person should be killed as redemption for them having killed someone else. Two wrongs don't make a right.
Zavita Ulay.
How can I protest if the Shepherds want McKinney dead? I just can't interfere with that. But on a more personal note, I knew Aaron in grade school. We never called him Aaron, he was just called AJ. How can we put AJ McKinney to death?
I think right now, our most important teachers must be Aaron McKinney and Russell Henderson. They have to be our teachers. How did you learn? And what did we do as a society to teach you that? See, I don't think a lot of people will let them be their teachers, but I think it would be wonderful if the judge said, in addition to your sentence, you must tell your story. You must tell your story.
All rise. State of Wyoming versus Aaron James McKinney, docket number 6381. The Honorable Judge Barton R. Voigt presiding. The court is now in session. During the trial, the prosecution played a tape recording of Aaron's confession.
My name is Robin DeBree, Sergeant for the Sheriff's Office. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and may be used against you in the court of law.
The following is an excerpt of that confession.
Okay, so you guys, you and Russ, go to the fireside. So you're at the fireside by yourselves, right?
Yeah.
Okay, where do you go after you leave the fireside?
Some kid wanted to ride home.
What's he look like?
Like a queer. Such a queer dude.
He looks like a queer?
Yeah, like a fag, you know?
Okay, how'd you meet him?
The queer, the fag guy, we were meeting at the bar. He asked us what we were drinking, what we were doing.
Okay, tell me what happened after you met him.
He wanted to ride home, and I just thought, well, the dude's drunk. Let's just take him home.
When did you and Russ talk about jacking him up?
We kind of talked about it at the bar.
Tell me what happened next.
We drove out past Walmart. We get over there, and he starts grabbing my leg and grabbing my genitals. And I was like, look, I'm not a fucking faggot. If you touch me again, you're gonna get it. I don't know what the hell he was trying to do, but I beat him up pretty bad. I think I killed him.
What'd you beat him with?
Blacked out, my fist, my pistol, the butt of the gun, wondering what happened to me. I had a few beers and I don't know. It's like I could see what was happening, but I don't know. It was like someone else was doing it.
What was the first thing that he said or that he did in the truck that made you hit him?
Well, he put his hand on my leg. Slid his hand as if he was gonna grab my balls.
When that defense team argued that McKinney did what he did because Matthew made a pass at him, I just wanted to vomit. Because that's like saying it's okay. It's like the Twinkie defense when that guy killed Harvey Milk and Moscone. It's the same thing.
You know, as much as a part of me didn't want the defense of them saying that it was gay bashing or that it was gay panic, part of me is really grateful because I was really scared that in that trial they were going to try and say that it was about robbery or that it was about drugs. So when they used gay panic as their defense, I felt this is good. If nothing else, the truth is going to be told, right? The truth is coming out.
Did he ever try to defend himself against you or hit you back?
Yeah, sorta. He tried his little swings or whatever, but he wasn't very effective.
Okay. How many times would you say you hit him inside the truck before you guys stopped where you left him?
I say I hit him 3 times with my fist and about 6 times with the pistol.
Did he ask you to stop?
Well, yeah, he was getting the shit kicked out of him.
Well, what did he say?
After he asked me to stop, most of all he was doing was screaming.
Okay. So, Russ kind of dragged him over to the fence, I'm assuming, and tied him up.
Something like that. I just remember Russ was laughing at first, but then he got pretty scared.
Was Matthew conscious when Russ did that?
Yeah, I told him, turn around. Don't look at my license plate, because I was scared he'd tell the police. I asked him what it said, he read it, and that's why I hit him a few more times.
Just to be sure. So, obviously, you don't like gay people.
No, I don't.
Would you say that you hate them?
I don't really hate them, but when they start coming on to me and stuff like that, I get pretty aggravated.
Did he threaten you?
This gay dude?
Yeah.
Not really.
Okay. Can you answer me one thing? Why did you guys take his shoes?
I don't know. I'm never gonna see my son again, am I?
I don't know. I mean, you'll probably go to court sometime today.
Today? So I'm gonna go in there and plead guilty or not guilty today.
No. You're just gonna be arraigned today.
Is he gonna die for sure?
There is no doubt Mr. Shepard is going to die.
So what are they gonna give me? 25 to life or just the death penalty? Get it over with.
That's not our job. That's the judge's job and the jury.
Has the jury reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor. We, the jury, impaneled and sworn to try the above entitled case, having well and truly deliberated, unanimously find as follows. As to the charge of kidnapping, we find the defendant, Aaron James McKinney, guilty. As to the charge of aggravated robbery, we find the defendant, Aaron James McKinney, guilty. As to the charge of first-degree felony murder, kidnapping, we find the defendant, Aaron James McKinney, guilty. As to the charge of second-degree murder,
the jury found Aaron guilty of felony murder, which meant that the jury could give him the death penalty.
As to the charge
that evening, Judy and Dennis Shepard were approached by McKinney's defense team, who pled for their client's life. The following morning, Dennis Shepard made a statement to the court. Here is some of what he said.
Aaron James McKinney, guilty.
My son Matthew did not look like a winner. He was rather uncoordinated and wore braces from the age of 13 until the day he died. However, in his all too brief life on this earth, he proved that he was a winner. On October 6, 1998, my son tried to show the world that he could win again. On October 12, 1998, my firstborn son and my hero lost. On October 12, 1998, my firstborn son and my hero died 50 days before his 22nd birthday. I keep thinking the same thing that I thought when I first saw Matthew in the hospital. What would he have become? How would he have changed his corner of the world and made it better? Matt officially died in a hospital in Fort Collins, Colorado. But he actually died on the outskirts of Laramie, tied to a fence. You, Mr. McKinney, with your friend Mr. Henderson, left him out there by himself. But he wasn't alone. He had his friends with him, friends that he had known his entire life. You're probably wondering who these friends were. First, he had the beautiful night sky with the same moon and stars that we used to look at through a telescope. Then he had the sun to shine down on his face. All the while, he was breathing in the scent of the pine trees from the snowy range. And he heard the wind, the ever-present Wyoming wind, for the last time. And he had one more friend with him. He had God. And I feel better knowing that he wasn't alone. Matt's beating and hospitalization and funeral have focused worldwide attention on hate. People are saying enough is enough, and good is coming out of evil. I miss my son, but I am proud to be able to say that he is my son. Judy has been quoted as being against the death penalty. It's been said that Matt was against the death penalty. But both of these statements are wrong. Matt believed that there were crimes and incidents that warranted the death penalty. And I, too, believe in the death penalty. I would like nothing more than to see you die, Mr. McKinney. However, this is the time to begin the healing process and to show mercy to one who refused to show any mercy. Mr. McKinney, I am going to grant you life, as hard as it is for me to do so, because of Matthew. Every day that you wake up in your prison cell, every day that you celebrate Christmas or the 4th of July, remember that Matt isn't. Every day that you wake up in your prison cell, remember that you had the ability and the opportunity to stop your actions that night. You robbed me of something very precious, and I will never forgive you. Mr. McKinney, I grant you life in the name of one who no longer lives. May you have a long life, and may you thank Matthew every day for it.
Hugged and cried, and I mean, everybody was crying, but when I saw Mr. Shepherd crying, that's what got me going, and
this is all we've lived and breathed for a year. Daily. This has been my case daily. And now, it's over.
Maybe now we can move on and finally quit being stuck, you know?
It just hit me the minute that I got out of the courthouse that the reason that God wanted me to find him is so he didn't have to die up there alone. And if I wouldn't have come along, they wouldn't have found him for a couple of weeks at least, so it makes me feel really good that he didn't have to die up there alone.
I am so glad that that's over. Testifying in that trial was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And don't get me wrong, I love the stage, I love it, but you see, what happens is, so you're sitting here and there's a lawyer over here and they're asking you questions, and you have to direct your answers toward the jury. You have to funnel your answers toward the jury. So you have to establish that funneling system. That is crucial. Because, you know, I'm a natural conversationalist, right? So when someone asks me a question, I want to look them in the eye and give them the answer. But you have to scoot in your chair. You have to direct your body toward the jury in order to establish that funneling system. But I was able to do that several times throughout my testimony.
On our last trip to Laramie, I had the good fortune of seeing Jedediah Schultz play the role of Pryor in Angels in America, and after his performance, we spoke.
I never let myself get too involved with the whole Matthew Shepard thing. It just seemed way blown out of proportion. You know, Matthew Shepard was just a name, not an individual. I don't know, it's so weird, man. I just feel bad for the person that I was and the things that I said, and that's why I want to hear those interviews that we did last year. And I don't know, I can't believe I ever said any of those things about homosexuals. How did I ever let that make me think that you were different from me?
This is Romaine Patterson.
Well, a year ago, I wanted to be a rock star. That was my goal. But now, obviously, that's changed due to the fact that I've really realized my role in taking my part. So now, instead of going to school for music, I'm going to school for communications and political science. Thank you. Because I have a career in political activism. Actually, I just found out that last month they were going to honor me in Washington, D.C. by the Anti-Defamation League. And whenever I think about any of the work that I've done, the speaking for the Angels, Matthew gave me. Matthew's like guiding me down this little path with his light. And every time we get to a door, we stop. He opens it, and then he says, okay, next step. And if I get to be a rock star along the way, that's cool.
This is Jonas Slonaker.
Change is not an easy thing, and I don't think people were up to it here. They got what they wanted. Those two boys got what they deserve, and we look good now. Justice has been served. The OK Corral. We shot down the villains. We set the prostitutes on the train. The town's cleaned up, and we don't need to talk about it anymore. You know, it's been a year since Matt Shepard died, and they haven't passed shit in Wyoming. At a town level, any state, nobody anywhere has passed any kind of anti-discrimination laws or hate crime legislation. Nobody anywhere has passed anything. What's come out of it? What's come out of all this that's concrete or lasting?
We all agreed to meet again, one last time, out at the fence.
I remember the night he and I drove around together. And he said to me, Laramie sparkles, doesn't it? And if you sit exactly where he was up there, Laramie sparkles from there, with the low-lying cloud. This is a blue light that's bouncing off of the clouds from the airport. And it goes tss, 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 right over the whole city. And it just blows you away. Matt was right there, in that spot. And I could just picture in his eyes what he was seeing. I could just picture what he was seeing. The last thing he saw on this earth was the sparkling lights.
We've spent the last few days packing up over a year's worth of materials and saying our goodbyes. We've been to Laramie 6 times and conducted over 200 interviews. Jedediah actually cried when we had to say goodbye.
Marge wished us luck, and when we asked her how Laramie would feel seeing a play about itself, she said,
You know, I think we'd enjoy it. To show it's not the hellhole of the earth would be nice. You know, but that's up to how you portray us. Well, and that in turn is up to how Laramie behaves.
As we were hanging up the phone, Marge said to me,
Now you take care. I love you, honey.
I love you too.
Doc actually asked me if I want to ghostwrite a book about the whole affair. Galloway offered me or anyone else a place to stay if and when we ever came back to Laramie. He also seemed interested as to whether there'd be any open auditions for the play.
We left Laramie at about 7 in the evening, and as I was driving, I looked in my rearview mirror to take one last look out at the town.
And I will speak with you, and I will trust that if you write a play of this, you do your best to say it correct.
And in the distance, I could see the sparkling lights of Laramie, Wyoming.
Rebecca's desk up there. You are totally welcome to write something and go and put it on the desk. Thank you so much for coming, everyone.